All right, welcome everybody to the September meeting of the Town of Ocean Ridge, a little belated. It's nice to see everybody here. Tracy, would you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Askov? Commissioner Askov?
Present.
Vice Mayor Bonfiglio?
Here.
Commissioner Magruder?
Here.
And Mayor Pugh?
Here.
And please let the record show that Commissioner Cos is absent with notice.
Okay, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Okay, are there any additions, deletions, modifications to the agenda? Yes, sir.
Can I just point out for housekeeping, Mr. Mayor, there's a memo on the top of your agenda package to explain because of the meeting reschedules. Several items that were originally on your September 11th meeting have moved for legal advertising purposes to September 26th. Those are delineated in your cover memo there.
Thank you. Somebody get their cell phone close to the microphone. All right. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you for shortening the meeting. We very much appreciate that. All right, any other additions or deletions? All right, who wants to make an approval of the agenda?
I'll move that we approve the agenda.
I second it.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, right now we're going into the budget public hearing. And we'll start out with A, presentation of tentative budget and proposed millage rate for fiscal year 2017-18. Jamie, you want to run with that?
I will keep, yes, sir, and I will try to keep this as short as possible because I know you appreciate that. You did receive an updated budget package where I indicated to you we finally found that little annoyance that was causing us a math problem. That has been corrected in the document that you have in front of you where the highlighted millage rate chart on page 1, the E-trim notice, and then the budget book is assembled. The change that occurred was a transposed number in the gross ad valorem taxable value for operating purposes. We corrected that and corrected all the cascade of calculations. So the numbers you see here are spot on and match the E-trim certified notices. In the budget book itself, in the data pages for the entire budget, which is for the most part the same as came out of the last workshop, except it was modified at the direction of the commission to try to fund this budget with a new rate of 5.25 mils, which would be a reduction of from the 5.35 mils that was originally voted as the maximum millage. So the only changes in the sheet numbers throughout the budget were to blend and make sure that at the end of the day, or on page 4, that the budget would balance itself, the proposed budget based on those changes. The highlighted new revenue number of $4,785,412 on page 2, which is the general revenue statement of FY18 proposed, is a 97% budgeted item against what ad valorem, gross operating ad valorem would generate. The only other change in terms of those calculations that you saw from the original version you received was once the number transposed was corrected, it reduced the available revenues by $1,374. So that was offset by reducing the contingency line item by that same amount. Other than that, everything in your book remains the same as computed in the last version you saw. Rather than go through everything, if you'd like, I'll just entertain questions unless you'd like me to walk through it all.
I think that's the way to go. We've gone through it 5 times?
This would be our fifth
time.
fifth meeting on the budget, yes.
All right, any questions for Jamie?
I have none.
I have none.
Neither do I.
All right, Jamie.
I would just point out to you that officially at this meeting, we will be taking action because of the change in millage rate. If that's what you would like to stay with, That was suggested in how this budget was constructed, but we'll codify that this evening if that's the will of the commission.
All right, well, thank you very much. All right, moving on, I'm announcing that the town of Ocean Ridge computed millage rate is higher than the rollback rate by 3.28%. The millage to be levied is 5.25 mils. All right, we have any comments from the public? Nancy?
Mayor, Commissioners, Nancy Hogan, 37 Hibiscus Way. And I didn't really have time to get into the budget here line by line, but I just have to tell you, overall, you municipalities are really darn lucky folks. Not only have you had an incredible increase in your value of your properties, and we all enjoy that, but then you immediately start grabbing our money for taxation, and then you were given a sales tax increase. So just think about the dollar amount and the bottom line that you're spending and is being given to you. And thank us who are getting older now staying in town, who pensions are not going up, and you just make it a town that might not be affordable for everyone, and it should be, and it can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, any commissioner comments? All right, moving on to D.
Well,
We'll lead to the
Excuse me, Mayor,
resolution?
I think you actually need action on this resolution item that you just,
Yeah, resolution,
We're doing that now.
we're doing that right, resolution 2017-12, right?
Yep.
yes.
Okay, I move that we adopt resolution number 2017-12, reducing the millage from 5.35 to 5.25, as set forth in the agenda, item 1D.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, moving on to letter E. Next resolution?
I move that we adopt resolution number 2017-13, adopting the fiscal year 2017-28 tentative budget, which shall take effect immediately as set forth in agenda item number 1 sub E.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carries. All right, the second and final hearing of the fiscal year 2017-18 budget will be held at 6 PM on Tuesday, September 26th. All right, there's a public comment section on the agenda coming up, or anything else you want to talk about? Come on, Betty.
I want to know who turns people loose with power saws with no brains in their head.
Who turned the people loose with who? Power saws? and-
Power saws with no, I know who does. They took the big heavy limb where there was no reason to take it off of the ficus tree. You got a tree weighted on one side. That tree's been there 100 years and it's a deep-rooted tree. If the wind hits it and it goes over, you're gonna have more than just power failures to think about. There was
What are we
no-
talking about? Over your
I'm
place?
talking about the big ficus tree in my yard. They took a limb off that was this big. When they restrung the cables, the cable company, at their own will, strung it so it was on that limb. But that limb wasn't going to take, there was nothing underneath it. And it was the weight of the tree on the outside. I mean, I've seen them do this before. Those people have absolutely no brains at all. I just have to comment because I was mad.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't think I disagree with you, but I appreciate it.
Well, Betty, they
No,
were,
I said I don't disagree with you.
you talk about the people that came by a couple of days before the hurricane hit?
Yes.
Because they came by my house and I asked them who's authorizing this, and apparently the cable companies contracted with these folks to come by and trim.
When they restrung the cables, they strung it this much lower and laid it
Yeah.
on that limb. And that limb, I don't know how much it weighed.
I'm not disagreeing with you, I
after
think
here,
it was
they
a
wouldn't
terrible
like
job, and I mean, I agree with you, but that's answers your question, that's who it was. It was a contractor through the cable companies. Okay,
So that was a rhetorical question?
okay.
Anybody other public comment?
I don't have public comment, but was it Aspen that came by for the power company and butchered all the trees in back of our house? And then Friday, before the storm, the cable company guy came by and they took another whack at it. So, I mean, they're like crazy. And they kept saying, well, my boss says if I don't trim this stuff today, I've got to trim it today to make my boss happy. And I said, well, what about me being happy? They weren't concerned about me being happy.
And notwithstanding all that trimming, we still lost electric and cable.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Any other public comment?
Well, I hate to admit it, Nancy Hogan, 37 Hibiscus Way, Mayor, Commissioners. This storm was horrible, absolutely horrible. I needed a counseling session. I didn't know what way to run. Thank heavens the chief had a little meeting and I got some more information. And of course, I was told I had to get off Barrier Island. My neighbor was there the whole time. I don't know what happened to the communication. I went over to the Snug Harbor that I owned, and I said, a Category 5's coming at us. We're going to head north. We went up to Orlando, and the darn eye came right over the apartment. I had no power anywhere, except Snug Harbor was only out 2 hours. I don't know what happened to Ocean Ridge. 2 hours they were out. But the elevator was out. And of course, I'm doing the crane thing, or the cane thing, so that was tough. But it was handled terribly. It is a disgrace that the light at Federal Highway and Woolbright has been out. It must have went on last night. My power went out again, and it wasn't my power. My cable went out again at 8 o'clock last night. The light when I came home was not fixed. Now today it's functioning. That's a disgrace. This is the closest exit anywhere in 95 in this state, and you don't have the influence or know who to call to get you up the line. The cable company told me last night, keep calling us every day so we know your project is going. There's a big, well, the pole was down, but there, I don't know, the wire I think is fixed, but the cable and the other, right on the guy's car and on his boat. Did any of you walk around? 3 of you live in my neighborhood. I am shocked. I am disappointed, and I want to just forewarn you that with a project that's going on, and the mayor in Boynton is now my new friend, he will at least listen to me, you better start make relationships, know who makes the decisions, because if that's how they treat us, we are in trouble when that project gets going. And we did lose a lot of electronics. You have storm surges. I lost my security. I lost my, I have a commercial wireless in the house. It goes in the whole house. It's gone. We have to fix it. My husband, now his PC he's going to take him, he says, 10 hours. He has to reload all the data. We were left sitting here like ducks out of water, and nobody helped us. So I hope that you learn who your fellow people are in the League of Cities, in the county, and get relationships going. Thank you very much, Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you, Nancy. All right, anyone else?
Charles Kittler, 35 Hersey Drive. I'd like to thank the town of Ocean Ridge, the chief, and the rest of the officials here for their efforts during this storm. And I believe part of this problem that we had with the vegetation is because the lack of people that want to cooperate with cutting their vegetation back. But I've seen people plant trees next to power lines, think we don't care about it. Well, it'll get trimmed now, and it'll get trimmed with a chainsaw at the wrong place. And this happens every time. Wilma, it was terrific how bad that was. So we all got complacent, and it's not fair to point at the city council and say that it's their fault when all of us live in this town, when all of us can afford to, or get somebody to clear something out. But every time we look at Aspen or whoever that's trimming, I don't care. If you go to other states, and I've seen Georgia Power do it where we used to live up there in Georgia, and if it was anywhere close, they'd level the whole tree. So feel lucky down here that you have any vegetation at all. Because just as a matter of fact, when did hurricane season start? Months ago. And we all knew this was coming, and what did we do? We just sat back and let it happen. Well, that I understand, but the vegetation in this area is unbelievable. And I am without a lot of services now because my neighbor thought to plant trees in the way of it and he won't trim it. Well, I will trim it given a chance, and it'll be with a steel chainsaw. And I'll cut it off as close as I can at the bottom. And if he doesn't like it, then he can afford another way that he can get power, because I'm just now getting back. And I've lost thousands of dollars because of electrical surges. Because for days, I had no neutral, and it faulted out. And just today I found out the pump that it blew out from my pool will only cost me $1,300. So have a nice day, folks. It costs everyone because of what you do to your neighbor. And if you think it's the city council's fault because of that, it's not. It's all of us. So everyone take the blame, and enough of this pointing the finger. Let's all get out and work and do a job and get things done. Don't moan and groan. Just get out of the way and let people work and pay the bills. That's all there is. Thank you. Have a
Thank you,
nice
Charlie.
day.
Anyone else?
My ficus tree has been there over 100 years.
Understood.
And it has grown and grown, and it was not any problem as far as taking wires down. I trimmed all the wires that were above the line, number one. Number two, we need trees
We do. I
for
agree with you.
shade, for oxygen, for everything, and you can't take them all down.
Okay, the debate of trees is now closed. So any other public comment? Okay, let's move on to approval of the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and second, any other discussion on it? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. All right, there are no announcements and proclamations, that's a first. Let's see, reports. Jamie, you're up.
I can honestly say my report is very brief because of all the storm duty, but I didn't write it here. I do want to publicly say that our employees, our police officers, everybody that worked on behalf of the town during this emergency was absolutely fantastic. And I just want to say that on the record so people know that people work 24/7 around the clock here. And things might have been much worse had we not gotten the cooperation and the interaction that we did. These meetings obviously were changed because of the hurricane emergency. So my report is abbreviated, but I also would like to report, you may remember in August that we had adopted a whole series of contracts that align us with the county and Solid Waste Authority and all their carriers. And as I've explained to some of you individually, it has been very challenging because of all the companies we've contracted with. None of them seem to have assets on the ground to do the work. But I'm happy to report after the governor's conference call today, where that same sentiment was shared across multiple counties, I did reach out directly to one of our carriers on our contract list, and they promised to be here tomorrow morning with 2 trucks and a claw and start working our town to pick up this debris. So it's been very challenging for everybody, and I just want to give kudos to the staff, to all of you, and to the residents that kicked in to really get us through what could have been a much, much worse situation. There's been some displacement and discomfort for some of the residents. For example, we had to stage the big blue pump down on Tropical because of a direct electrical failure to the electric system and the pump system down there. So we have the resources that we have on site, and we've deployed those to keep everybody safe. But I can't say enough about the dedication and hard work that all the employees did here, and I appreciate them.
Is that it?
That's it. I would just like to mention one other thing to you. Before all this rescheduling was done, I'm flying back on Monday, the 25th, this coming Monday, and you have a planning and zoning meeting that morning, so I will not be back in time for that, but the town attorney will be presiding over that and able to walk them through the item on their agenda that has to do with re-looking at the construction management and architectural review issues that are still on their plate.
Great, thank you. You have a question?
No, I didn't have a question, I have a comment. Anytime I was up here, and I was up a number of times, after so-called office hours, etc., Jamie was always here. He was working his butt off the whole time, and I think we all appreciate the emails that he was sending us, and I think he did a tremendous job.
I'd have to agree with you, you and the chief,
The chief and the police
and
department
the
were
police department
fantastic.
driving around, giving us things, but I want to make one, point out one person who ran most of the police department and scheduling and getting the guys out there. In fact, he was in his T-shirt with a chainsaw cutting limbs. That's Rich Jones back there, Lieutenant Jones. I want to say thank you very much from the town of Ocean Ridge. I'm going to put that on public record. All right, any other comments?
He's a rock star. He's
Chainsaw man. Okay.
Chainsaw Massacre.
Brian, do you have anything?
No, sir.
It's like a surprise meeting. Chief?
I need to thank all my officers, especially Lieutenant Jones, for taking on that responsibility as I was out of town at the beginning of this, and all of you are aware of that. To come back and have something as seamless as this, as an administrator of a police department is unheard of. I need to thank the dispatchers. I don't know if you are aware of it, but they were answering in excess of 400 calls every 10 hours, which is unheard of, and resolving those calls as best they could for every question that they got. There were 2 of them on duty, answering the phones at a time, 2 of them in backup, but continuous throughout the storm for 72 hours. I have to thank the residents for their patience and understanding. Everybody's tempers get a little hot when they get frustrated and when they get hot from no air conditioning. Without your cooperation and understanding of us, it would have made our job extremely difficult. And all I can do is assure you that everybody from your police department did everything that they possibly could physically and mentally to help you and to make this a non-event as much as we could. And I need to thank you for giving us the tools to do the job. Without you giving us our tools and planning as you did the week before, we would have not been as successful, and we probably would have affected the normalcy of life a lot longer than we had to, and not been able to open on Tuesday morning as we did.
Chief, is it true that we had a full complement of officers where a lot of the coastal towns did not?
We had every officer on duty, with the exception of one, because I refused to pay for her flight back from her vacation on a cruise, though she would have come back. For the full 72 hours of the storm, starting Saturday morning at 7 a.m. And we did not pull anyone off of the road for patrol other than for the period where it was impossible to travel for anyone. And the officers were actually voluntarily asking to do additional patrols during that time where other agencies pulled their officers off the road. So that was their decision to continue and patrol, not a directive given.
Thank you for the excellent job, Chief. Anything else to add? Chief, anything else?
Report is in front of you from a month and a half ago. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to action item. Request for lien reduction of 23 Coconut Lane. Jamie?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an outstanding lien on 23 Coconut Lane. Yes, 23 Coconut Lane. The total lien amount that is currently due under the daily fines, et cetera, the administrative costs, is $7,753.03. We do have a note that Mr. Cooksey had not paid his rental registration for this property, and a notice was sent to him with no response back in 2017. That's a $35 fee that's outstanding. The request has come to the town to consider reducing or altering this fine.
All right, is Mr. Cooksey here? Okay.
The applicant's here, so.
Do you want to address the commission regarding this? Sure, come on.
I sent a formal request for leniency on August 25th. I don't know if everybody got a copy of that or not. I have an extra copy of it.
I believe we did, and we all got a copy of that.
And just briefly, I've owned the property since 2008, and I purchased that essentially as investment property.
The existing tenant was Philip von Egmond, who is still there. And we had a deal with him where he was going to lease the property, and part of his duties also were to be a complete caretaker for the property, all the maintenance, both interior and exterior, including the landscaping. And he was there since 2008, and I never had a problem. He, in fact, planted a lot of the landscaping. It's quite a lush landscaping, a lot of trees and shrubs and everything else. Gardening is one of his pastimes. Around 2016, I became aware from Officer Van Camp that there was a problem with the landscaping. And I thought it was a fairly minor problem. I thought it involved pretty much a cleanup of the yard, some trimming and stuff like that. And Philip had always dealt directly with whatever officer was on duty. And there had been some minor issues in the past. Some of them Mr. Van Egmond didn't even cause, like he got a notice once, I think, for some leaves or bags of vegetation that were at the bottom of the cul-de-sac that he had to do. He cleaned it up anyway, and he always had a very good working relationship with the officers, so he's always able to work with them and resolve whatever problems had arisen with the property. And sometimes he'd be working on the property and they'd tell him to, to fix something, like he'd be working on the septic tank or something and bricks were stacked, and he said, well, because I'm working, then he'd fix the problem. So he'd always been able to resolve these problems. And apparently this seemed to be a molehill that turned into a mountain. It just, he gave him notice to trim the landscaping. It got overgrown in several spots. And I thought between the two of them, they could work it out. And I live up in Palm Beach Gardens pretty much full-time. I'm extremely busy. And I thought Mr. Van Egmond and Officer Van Camp would work out all the issues, get in front of the town meeting, and then I found out it wasn't to Officer Van Camp's satisfaction at the first hearing on this. And again, I said, well, what needs to be done? He says, well, he's still not satisfied with some of the trimming. Some of the weeds need to be pulled and whatnot. And I said, well, just please get the problem resolved. I want to keep that yard, keep the premises in good shape. Apparently, there was a second hearing, September 6th last year, and I thought the situation had been pretty much resolved by then, and apparently it wasn't. And Philip said he still had a couple more minor things to fix up, and then everything would be okay. And then I hadn't heard back since then. And I talked to him, he said, yeah, I got everything fixed that Officer Van Camp wanted me to fix. And that's the last I heard of it until earlier this year, I think about June. I was just doing a routine credit run on myself, and I picked up a lien on the property in excess of $7,000. I naturally was fairly shocked, and I called Mr. Van Egmond. I said, what in the heck is going on there? I said, there's obviously some bad miscommunication going on between me and you and Officer Van Camp, because this thing has not been resolved. He said he thought he did, and he admitted that he didn't pay the fine for that meeting because he was going to, and he got into a cash flow crunch, and then he just forgot to do it, and he just didn't have the money and was kind of ashamed to tell me he didn't have the money and had taken care of it. So what I had done is relieve Mr. Van Egmond of any further landscaping duties. I hired a professional landscaping company immediately to go clean up the place, clean up the yard, and put them on a monthly maintenance contract so that the premises are always kept up. And additionally, I hired an architect to take over any renovation of the property. Mr. Van Egmond, he took over, what happened to him is he took over a cafeteria that his nephew had founded, and his nephew got into some immigration problems and couldn't get his papers to come back. It's the Bond and Smulders Bakery over in Boynton Beach, and so that required him to be there 7 days a week, practically full-time, and he had, sounds like he had neglected taking care of the property. And so I still have the architect doing all the renovations professionally now, including getting any permits or anything else, and the landscape architect full-time on maintenance contract to keep the property clean and neat. And again, there was never any willful violation of the town codes or anything else on my part, or I don't even think Mr. Van Egmond's part. I think he just kind of got overwhelmed, and I do think there was some miscommunication. and speaking to him. He said, well, he tells me to do something, I do, and then he comes back and asks me to do something else, and I do that, and he felt like he was kind of running in circles, getting everything done. And everything was just never fully done to Officer Van Camp's satisfaction. And then they started leaning the property, unbeknownst to me, I think in about November of last year, $25 a day, and I didn't even know it. And I hadn't heard back anything, and, until I discovered the lien on the property. And, I've taken action to immediately rectify everything with the property and get it under professional care.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Cooksey?
I do. I'm a little bit confused by some of these dates in your letter. Do you have your letter?
Yes,
Okay. Under the heading, notices of violations in hearing.
right,
Okay, your first sentence says, May 2016, I received the violation notice from the town of Ocean Ridge. So, okay, this all started May 2016?
right.
And are you getting notices at your you say you live in Palm Beach
I live in
Gardens?
Palm Beach. I got them at my residence in Palm Beach Gardens.
Okay, so you got that notice in May 2016. Then
Right.
you say, you immediately contacted Mr. Van Egmond to rectify the problem. So
Right.
that was in May of 2016, right?
Right.
Did you contact Officer Von Camp?
I think I spoke to him once.
Well,
Yeah.
was this in May 2016, or?
Yeah, right
Okay.
around after the time it started happening.
Okay.
And he said he's working with Philip to get the problem solved. They were talking to each other practically
Okay,
on a
I
daily
understand
basis.
that.
Yeah,
All right, so, but
Yeah.
you talked to him, you think, once, the
I
officer?
believe so on the
Okay.
phone once, yeah,
Then you say Mr. Von Egmond subsequently appeared at the June 7, 2017 hearing.
right.
Is that a typo, or was that a June 7, 2016
Oh, I'm
hearing?
sorry, June 7, 2016, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
all right, so,
It is a typo. Yes, it
so
is.
you didn't go to the hearing, did you?
I didn't go to the hearing.
Why didn't you go to the hearing?
I thought that all the issues were resolved. I
Well,
talked,
if there was a hearing scheduled,
right.
why would you think the issues were resolved?
Well, I remember talking to Mr. Van Egmond, and he says I have to go to the hearing on June 7th. And I said, have you taken care? And he says, that very day of the hearing, he was actually working on the
Okay.
property.
Did you go to the property? This is your property, right?
Right.
Did you go to the property and visualize and see exactly what was wrong with it?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so you're just talking to your tenant about what's wrong, and he's assuring you he's fixing it?
Yeah, he
But
said.
you didn't make any inspection to verify what your tenant was telling you?
Right, I didn't.
And you didn't
make-
go to the hearing?
I didn't go to the hearing.
Okay, so let's see. Then you say a second hearing was held on September 6, 2016.
Right,
You got a notice for that hearing at the Palm Beach Gardens address?
I believe so, yes.
So you knew about the second hearing.
Right,
Did you go to the second heering?
no.
Did you even go to your property to see what was happening so that, you could go to the September 2016 hearing and say, hey, it's being fixed?
No, I spoke to
Did you-
Mr. Van Egmond again.
Did you
and
take any pictures of the property?
Mr. Van Egmond did, yeah.
Okay, but did you?
No, I
Okay.
didn't. I didn't.
All right, then, again, you're talking to your tenant. Did you talk to Officer Van Camp before the September 6th, 2016 hearing?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Okay, and I see your next sentence, you admit that you didn't attend either the hearing because you
Right.
thought the officer, but you didn't verify anything with the officer. You only spoke with him once, right?
I spoke to him once, right.
Okay. So you made no attempt after that initial conversation to verify with the officer that anything had been done?
No,
Okay.
no, I didn't. I was
Then
kind of
you
relying
say-
on what Mr. Van Egmond was telling me.
So you go from September 6, 2016 to June 2017, which is almost a year.
Right.
You made no follow-up attempt to visit the property to see if anything had been fixed?
I think I had been to the property one time,
Okay,
and I wasn't specifically looking at the landscaping. I went
Okay.
there for some other purpose.
but I mean,
Yeah.
you knew that the landscaping was the issue, but you didn't inspect to see if the landscaping had been corrected?
I didn't do a complete inspection of the
Okay.
landscaping when I went to the property a few times, and I knew it has very lush vegetation. Mr. Van Egmond works on it periodically.
Okay.
And,
What does your lease provide for the property with respect to the obligation to maintain? Is it the tenant's obligation or is it your obligation?
No, it's a tenant's obligation.
Is that set forth in your written lease?
I don't have a copy of it. It's just a standard lease. Yeah, he's supposed to maintain and,
I didn't see the copy of the lease in any of the paperwork you supplied us.
I didn't, we have kind of a verbal
Okay.
agreement that he's.
It's not a written lease then?
I have a written lease, it's just a basic lease, residential lease.
Okay, so,
All the stuff with the landscaping is pretty much verbal with me.
so in
and
other
Mr.
words,
Van
we're
Aken.
not real sure whether there's a written agreement that obligates your tenant to maintain the property, correct?
That's correct, it's just a
Okay.
standard residential lease. It's not in detail that he's supposed to do A, B, C, and D with the property.
Okay.
He'd been there 8 years, and he had taken care of the property fairly immaculately.
Okay.
And then the problem started to arise, and because he had done that and always worked with it, he would tell me when there was a problem with the city with another issue or something, and they'd always resolve, he had about 3 or 4 issues before, and he'd always resolved it himself.
But it's your property though, right?
That's
He's just the
correct.
tenant, okay.
Right.
I mean, it's not an option to buy or anything like that, right?
No, he's kind of a tenant, and part
Okay.
of his obligations are to take care of the property, kind of a caretaker slash tenant.
Okay, now,
Is that all you
Jamie?
have?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Sir.
has the issue been resolved now? It
I'm
has?
under the impression that
Has
they're in
he
compliance.
paid the rental
No.
fee? No,
I
okay.
think that's still outstanding, that's a $35.
Okay, thanks
fee.
for all the information, I appreciate it, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Cooksey? I just have one, Mr. Cooksey, before you leave. Ocean Ridge, I mean, you live in Palm Beach Gardens, it's only 30 minutes from here.
Right.
Ocean Ridge is very delicate on their landscaping, as the beginning of the meeting clearly showed. And it just seems to me that you're the owner of the property,
Yes.
and for a year, you pretty much left it in the hands of someone else to make sure that your property was taken care of.
Yes, that's
And-
exactly what happened. I trusted.
Well, I can
Mr.
understand
Van
that, but
Aken.
see, if you lived in a different state or something of that nature, maybe there would be some kind of reasoning, and I appreciate your veracity and your comments, but you live 30 minutes away. And even though I don't want to come down on landowners in Ocean Ridge, the problem I see here is you didn't take any responsibility as the owner of the property. I mean, literally none. I mean, your letter literally blames this Mr. Van Egan, or whatever his name is, for the whole reason why. And I went by there yesterday, and I don't think the property even looks that much better than it did prior to getting it all cut down.
Well,
I mean, it's pretty much still overgrown, to be, in my opinion, and the problem here is not the fact that you haven't been there looking after it. The problem here is your neighbors have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's what the town commission has to realize, that you, for a year, left your property in such a state that the police department had to do a code violation on it. And your neighbors had to put up with all the trash and everything that was going on in your property, and you did not have the reasoning to come down here to your property to take a look at it. You were relying on somebody else. And then the fact of the matter, if you had hardly any contact with the code compliance officer, it seems to me that the way I'm looking at it from my glasses is I really didn't care
Oh, yeah.
until you found out there was a lien on your property. And then you had to care because if there's a lien on your property, you can't do anything with the property. So, in my opinion, I don't see any reason why this town should give you any leniency whatsoever on this amount of money. None. But I'm one voice in this commission, so.
well, I obviously do care about that property. I've got a big mortgage on it. I've never laid on the mortgage. I
If
never laid on
that
anything.
has nothing to do with the town of Ocean Ridge. That's every owner, not every owner, but most owners, most people live here, do the same thing. We take care of our property. We make sure that we're not inconveniencing our neighbors with overgrown trees and plants blowing all over the place, and the police don't come in the house and give us code compliance notices because we're not cutting down our vegetation. You did. And you live 30 minutes away, and you did not come down here to do this. You relied on somebody to do it, and you didn't take care of your property. And now the town of Ocean Ridge put a lien on your property, and you found out about it. That's when all of a sudden there was this concern in these letters,
Well,
as you freely admitted. So at this point, I mean, you're asking for leniency, and the town commission now will take a vote, and we'll let you know. So is there any other questions or comments to Mr. Cooksey? Hearing none, anybody want to make a motion? It's an action item.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
that we do not give him any leniency on the violations, the fines.
I'll second the motion.
Second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Moving on to our next. All right, going on to the first reading of ordinances. Tracy.
Yes, Mayor. Ordinance number 626, an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending its Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 2, Administration, Article 5, Elections, Section 2-193, filing date for candidates for Town Commission, to change the qualifying period to better allow for absentee voting, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Okay. Brian, you have anything to add to this?
No, I don't. This is just something that most municipalities, the SOE, Supervisor of Elections of Palm Beach County, has asked most municipalities who had qualifying periods in January and February before the March election to try to move those back, because I think she was having an issue of being able to send out absentee ballots and get those ballots back in time in order for that to count for the election. And that's the reason that the request has been to move this back. And I think, in conversation with Tracy and the town manager, I think we were looking at things, and it's kind of like, okay, this looks like the starting qualifying from the first Monday in December and ending on the second Friday in December was kind of a good fit. But, if you all have a different opinion, you can certainly let us know.
Anybody make a motion?
I'll move that we adopt ordinance number 626 as set forth in item number 10 on our, I guess it's our amended agenda for this meeting.
Second. Motion and second. Any other discussion? Public comment?
Nancy Hogan, 37 Hibiscus. What is the qualifying suggested time? Is there a specific date?
I don't know, did the SOE give us a specific date, or was this the specific date, or did she just want it moved back prior to, I think, the
Prior to
first week in
January.
January?
Mhm,
Okay.
yes.
What was that?
She just wanted to move back to the first week in January.
Or prior to the first week in January, I think. And
The-
so,
Could we really know what you're voting on?
Yes, Nancy, the dates in the ordinance are the first Monday in December to the second Friday in December, so it's a 14-day period there.
So it's backed up to the beginning of December?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Right, Don? Commissioner comments?
Are we there?
Yes, we are there.
All the second ordinances moved to the next week meeting.
Okay.
Moving with rapid speed for you.
We are, good. Hopefully, the commission has had a chance to read my memo, and what I'm basically asking for, or make a motion, that we approve Jamie's and my attendance, and Jamie would be the backup. I would like to be the primary. Commission to participate with the Rising Water Task Force of Delray Beach during the next year. And the purpose of that would be to try and get a handle on climate change information that is proposed during these meetings. This group was really created by the, in support of the Southeast Florida Regional Climate Change Compact. Our participation will help the commission, us, to better understand and prepare Ocean Ridge for future infrastructure issues caused by sea level rise, saltwater intrusion, tropical storms, and storm surge, all of which we've kind of experienced this. It's a good timing for this. Understanding the impact of these issues during the coming months would allow us information when we get together next year to prepare the budget, to see what kind of information that we may need, engineering studies and so on and so forth, going forward in 2019. So that's basically what I would like to do, is just to get the commission's support that either I go, I would be the primary, and Jamie would be my backup. We had a meeting Friday. I don't think we
That was
were
not
able,
it. No,
we
it was
were
all-
not able to attend. Was it rescheduled?
I don't know if they've rescheduled that meeting, but they meet on a regular basis, so there'll be follow-up meetings.
Probably the only expense involved in that would be, you know, lunch or whatever, if there was a charge. I don't know of any other fees that might come forward out of this until we get into it and start participating.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't see it going to, you know, if I'm going to another meeting, as long as it's not costing the town anything. I know there is other, because are they gonna be dovetailing it with the southeast? Because I know that the county,
There's Miami-Dade.
the Palm Beach
Broward,
County has some too, doesn't
and
it?
Palm Beach County.
If I may piggyback, Mayor, the flyer I passed out to you is just to make you aware of the Southeast Florida Regional Compact on Climate Change, which is actually a consortium of Palm Beach County, Broward County, Miami-Dade, Monroe, and other players, and Palm Beach County is a member of this. So the group that Commissioner Magruder's speaking of is a localized version of this mission. But I gave you the flyer just so that you can know what's out there. The county already participates in this group, and it's been said that we look at Miami-Dade and Broward as our canaries in the coal mine, if you will, as they start to go underwater. We have several years before we look at what they're doing and whether it's effective or not. But Delray, because they've had some impacts on water intrusion into their Marina District and other areas, they've set up a local group to monitor these issues. So I'm happy to serve as Commissioner Magruder's backup if you'd like him to attend and monitor this. The cost to the town would just be the time to attend and possibly the cost of a group lunch meeting, whatever they charge for that when they meet.
We're on the hook for the group lunch, or?
No, I hope
Well, no, he can pay his own way if he
Yeah, he
wants.
Bill it to Jones.
Well, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it.
I don't think we need an action item or a vote
No.
on it. Sure, why not, if you want to go? I don't have a problem with it.
I wanted to make sure that the commission was aware of and approved of attendance to participate in these meetings to see, you know, future, what's happening in Delray is just down the street basically from us. And I think going forward, looking at these types of issues is going to be less expensive in preparing than it would be in trying to fix the issues after we're hit with them, so.
Well, you know that the building codes now, building codes are already doing a lot of that now by raising your elevation of your homes that you have to build. That's why so many homes in Ocean Ridge, when they build one, it's so much higher than the next door neighbors, which we have to deal with. So
But
that's
this-
already happening, but
Well,
the only question I had was,
This is not so much for building codes as it is for the saltwater intrusion that we're having and the sea level rise that they're predicting anywhere from 6 to 10 inches between 15 and 2030. So that's already started, and I think Delray is fighting those issues.
so yeah, that's what I want to ask you though. Whether it be sea levels pressurized 6 to 12 inches in 10 years? Well, where did you get that?
This all came, if you will go back and, did you
Mhm.
read this report that,
I was just curious because, I mean, what I've read, I mean, I'm not saying I'm not a denier, but I'm also not henny penny either.
yeah.
And, I mean, I've got stuff here that says, you know, you get sea level rise in 2030, 3 to 7 inches. So, I mean, I
Well,
got 6 to 12 here.
The
I
information
mean,
that's in the book that Christine passed out to us was really very, very good and comprehensive on the Rising Water Task Force in Delray, and she's been working on this. And it says 6 to 10. And, you know, so I'm sure there's a difference of opinion. But what I'm trying to do is just trying to get ahead of it so that we can have more information as we go forward. We've already had problems with the detention pond that's down at Woolbright and US 1 that is not working correctly. The last time we did any kind of a flood study was in 2000. So it's time that we started paying attention going forward on these.
If you want to attend meetings and check it out. I don't see any problem with it. You guys see any problem with that?
No, I don't.
As long as it's not costing us anything for this point, because I mean, some of the infrastructure improvements that you're talking about are going to be having to come from federal monies down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, the
So
town,
that would be one of the things that we'd be looking for, is where the resources, you know, what kind of grants are available and so on and so forth.
okay,
Okay.
Good.
thank you, Don. Anything
We have
else? Public comment. That's at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah, why?
Well, I need to comment on this.
Well, let's not make it.
You do
an
realize
argument.
that the gurus in England finally admitted that last week, that they crunched their figures to get the outcome they wanted. And I think there are a lot of things we're doing which are creating water intrusion. I'm not a believer in global warming. but
Thank you, Betty.
They did admit it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming. Meeting adjourned. See you next month. Actually, see you 26th.
On our
Yeah,
from next
another
meeting.
week, another week.
Yeah.
Next Tuesday.
Thank you.